Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Hardware Podcast after a little 2 week break there. We are coming in after the first round of the FCS playoffs. Man, there's a lot to talk about. We got some finalists for the Buck Buchanan. Those are like 18, though. We've got like actual finalists, like 3 finalists for the Walter Payton. A lot to get to. Man, what a busy week in football. Like if you had told us like this time last year that like we would be in the middle of like some college playoffs and the NFL draft, like we would have looked at you like you were crazy. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. As I get distracted doing my cadet work, my cadet job, but it's totally an awesome weekend. Shame on me, I kind of missed some of it. Going to a Mets game, finally getting off post, watching the Mets Nationals, but really a great week. And honestly, it went all as expected, but some teams had some close calls. Really, Delaware had a close call. Sam Houston State, which we'll go on a little further about Sam Houston State when we talk about the Walter Payton race, but really a great weekend, like you said, Jackson. It was just rosy.
You can't go wrong with time off post except for watching baseball. I fault you for that. But hey, at least you were there. But yeah, man, what a great weekend of football. I as well did miss some of the action on Saturday. It has been a crazy busy week. But you said a couple teams had closer calls than expected. If I had to pick a 1 seed to lose, or like someone at like the top of their like division or whatever section, whatever it's called, I would have picked South Dakota State because I haven't really liked them that much this year. And man, they answered that question. 31-3 against Holy Cross, an undefeated, albeit 3-0 Holy Cross team. And Holy Cross, we'll get into that later as well with the Walter Payton, but they've got one of the finalists as well. Or no, excuse me. I'm completely wrong on that. I misread that. Is it Buckby?
Fordham has. I think Fordham has
Fordham.
The
Yeah,
finals of
you're
the
right.
Patriot League.
I don't know how I
Yeah.
got that confused.
Jeez, Jackson. Not all Catholic/Jesuit schools are the same. But also, am I hearing
Yeah.
that you're on the Holy Cross bandwagon on the Matt Sluka, the Zach Wilson of the Seven Hills of Worcester bandwagon?
I did not say that. I am on the anti-Granowski bandwagon, if there is such one. Which I'm not anti-Granowski, but I didn't think he played that great this season. Better than I could have. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying way better than I could have. But still not up to Walter Payton Award level. But apparently up to destroying in the first round of the FCS playoffs level.
Yeah, no, totally for sure. So first off, since we didn't address it last week, do you think the FCS committee or the NCAA they missed any picks with the playoffs? I think they were just fine, except I do have one misgiving. I do think I would have taken Southern over Southern Illinois, but Southern Illinois removed all doubts this past weekend by beating Weber State. But I think it would have been cool to give Southern a chance, 4-1, especially what they did the last weekend with the nationally televised drubbing of Grambling and the worst Bayou Classic blowout since the 30s. Really stunning.
Yeah, I don't think the committee got much wrong. In fact, I think they should replace the FBS playoff committee, who seems to put Notre Dame in every year. But yeah, they didn't get much wrong at all. I mean, I'm looking at it. We had, for the most part, competitive games. There were some things that were, some unexpected blowouts like North Dakota State. Well, I guess not. I guess all of them except for one were 2-score games, but they're good slate. And yeah, I don't think they got too much wrong. I think the quarterfinals would be much more competitive and much more interesting. Honestly, though, I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Yeah, no, I agree. Even though, honestly, so I thought that Delaware, I guess getting into some of the games in the first round, I thought that Delaware would wipe the floor with Sacred Heart, but apparently Julius Chestnut, man, he's something to be reckoned with because he's now a finalist for Walter Payton that we mentioned, and that game was a 19-10 game, very close at Delaware's venerable Delaware State Stadium. That they have, I think a really good home field advantage from what I hear of. And just other surprises like that, and especially SIU and Weber State, one of the seeds going down this past weekend.
Yeah, Julius Chestnut upwards of 130 yards as well as a touchdown on the ground. He is a force to be reckoned with. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough. apologies to VMI and to you, Omar, for VMI. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that, just in case any cadets are listening. But your secret crush over the year, VMI, and James Madison, you've been on the anti-JMU bandwagon this year, and I have to say, I saw it coming. That defense wasn't as legit as we thought, either of us.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. But the thing was, like, James Madison almost blew a 28-3 like lead. I mean, that game still came down to the wire. And what I imagine, I think this is something that VMI fans will think of for a long time. But what if Reese Udinsky played? Nothing against Seth Morgan, still a very splendid quarterback for the Keydets. But hey, I mean, he doesn't have the experience that Reese Udinsky had as all-time leading passer for VMI. But I think that's one of those what could have been.
Like, did he? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, he was hurt. He had a season-ending injury. Remember that the Samford game that we both watched?
That's right.
He got hurt on the final drive.
I thought he was like dressing but questionable.
No, like he got hurt. He finished the drive.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. That's what games I didn't get to catch this weekend.
Definite what could have been there. Like it's kind of sad actually.
If Udinsky plays, do you think they won?
Maybe. I'd say maybe because I mean there was a pick in the end zone early on in the game. VMI got in the red zone on a reverse, and Seth Morgan throws a pick in the end zone. Game ends up being a one-score game. So maybe they send the game into overtime, if anything. And with just with that too, like it was like the game was closer than the score indicated, being a one-score game and being a 31-17 game in the final minute, closer than it indicated.
Another question. We're getting into the bracketology part early, but do you think North Dakota State? I won't ask you if they think they'll win it all because, I won't get that far. Do you think they get knocked out before the final round, though?
Maybe against Southern Illinois. I'll have to check what the score was for the first game that they played. But I don't know, man. They're like the hottest team in the country. Maybe if they play North Dakota State in a rematch again, because I thought North Dakota State was left for dead against Eastern Washington, Eric Barriere. Yet another finalist for the Walter Payton. But I do think that South Dakota State looks like the hottest team, to be honest with you. I think the one team that could stop them, frankly, it might be James Madison or Delaware.
Yeah, I mean, Delaware, they have a shot in the Final Four. And then, no, they would play in the final. But, it'll be interesting to see. I guess we're already in the Elite Eight right now. If we're going by NCAA men's basketball terms. North Dakota State, I think they'll beat Sam Houston State this week. I would like to see North Dakota. I would like to see a second rematch versus North Dakota because Ojaswea did not get the carries that he needed in order for North Dakota to win. Maybe they learned their lesson last time. Maybe they've listened to our podcast and noticed that they should have maybe stuck to the running game for a little longer. If James Madison pulls out a victory versus North Dakota, then I don't see North Dakota State not at least going to the championship. It's interesting. It's like this is. Do you think the calendar, like the calendar part of the year, like that we're not doing this in January or December is like? Do you think that could contribute to a North Dakota State loss if they did?
Maybe, but I think they got things figured out with the running back by committee because they pulled out yet another running back this past Saturday. And if anything, I think JMU – I don't think they get past JMU, but JMU should get past North –
get past JMU?
I don't think they do because JMU, do with everything involved, I really don't think that they – because –
for me, it's the opposite. I think they could beat JMU pretty handily, and I think they might struggle with North Dakota.
Handily? You say that, but North Dakota State lost handily to Southern Illinois. They lost by 2 scores to South Dakota State. And really, what it's going to be, I think it's going to be a defensive battle. And I just think James Madison has the better front seven with big Mike Green and the better running game with Percy Agie-Obesi running the ball for the Dukes.
Yeah, that's a fair point. You just mentioned their running back, and he came in tied for 11th of the voting. So with one first place vote, which is odd to me. I mean, they're going to have to win in the trenches if they do beat North Dakota State. I think we haven't seen the peak of Hunter Lupka either. I think he could play a big role as a fullback for North Dakota State. So, yeah, it's exciting to see. If you want to catch the North Dakota State Sam Houston State game, that's going to be 3:00 Eastern on ESPN. Looks like this May 2nd, so it's going to be on the Sunday, right? All of these games are on Sunday.
Yeah, all these games are on Sunday, which I think is a good move. I think so. I think it's a good
they
move.
don't want to interfere with the draft. Casual football fans are probably going to watch the draft.
I didn't factor that in. I thought it was just like random, but that's a good point.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that.
That's it. Well, the reason why I think that is because the 24th and May 8th, both Saturdays, they're filling up that Saturday, and then they don't want to interfere with that because I think that got moved. It used to be on ESPN too. Rounds 4 through 7. I think they moved it to ESPN and ABC, if I remember right. So they don't want to interfere with that. So excited for some good Sunday football. What's the most interesting, most competitive game do you think we have for this slate? If you don't already know, only 4 games this Sunday.
South Dakota State. One on Saturday. You got the SWAC championship, which we'll talk about as well.
Oh yes, SWAC championship. Can't forget that. South Dakota State, Southern Illinois, Delaware, Jacksonville State, James Madison, North Dakota, and finally one we've already talked about, North Dakota State and Houston State.
So I like out of all these, I think North Dakota State can beat Sam Houston. And also too, I'm liking Delaware, Jacksonville State. I think Delaware can upset Jacksonville State given that Jacksonville State lost to Austin Peay earlier in the year. And I mean, they kind of come out of a weaker conference in the OVC. So those are my 2 for the more competitive games. You do have some primetime games, which is really awesome that those teams get in the primetime spotlight. Brookings Stadium should be rocking. I don't know what JMU Stadium's name is, but that place should be rocking as well. The one thing that stops me from liking North Dakota James Madison is North Dakota's road woes. They have only won 2 road games in the past 2 seasons. So that is a concern. And especially now that they're going to Virginia. A lot of humidity in the spring. It's starting to get warm here on the eastern seaboard, so could be something to look out for.
No, definitely. Delaware, Jacksonville State, I just think it's kind of funny that that's the only one that's on ESPN3. Basically, for the first part of your Sunday, go ahead and keep it 3 p.m. Eastern. You'll need 2 TVs or 2 screens. North Dakota State, Sam Houston, and then Delaware, Jacksonville State, both on one's on ESPN, one's on ESPN3. And then at 6:00, you'll have the JMU North Dakota. 9 p.m. Eastern is when you'll have SDSU in Southern Illinois. Southern Illinois intrigues me. They're the ones with the most losses because they went 5-3, and they also had a close loss against Weber State. But as far as most intriguing game, I think I might go James Madison, North Dakota. Only 1 combined loss between the 2. James Madison beat, a VMI that I now know was without Udinski. And North Dakota, I mean, if Otis Weah can stay strong, then I think they have a pretty good chance to win that one. But I think that's the one that I feel the most like I don't feel too strong either way. I guess earlier today I was leaning toward North Dakota, but I don't know. I can see both.
Yeah, so for me, I know we mentioned the SWAC championship briefly, and we'll talk a little bit more about one of the quarterbacks playing Aqeel Glass, but that ESPN2, 3:00 on Saturday, only game on the Saturday, that is a great quarterback battle right there because you got Aqeel Glass, a guy who is NFL ready, I think. Just a great guy that can sling the ball, has been doing great for Alabama A&M, had a couple national televised games. So people know Aqeel Glass beating Jackson State, having 7 touchdowns, National Player of the Week, and then follow that performance up with a great game in the Magic City Classic at the Gray Old Lady in Birmingham and Legion Field.
Typically like NFL scouts are like on the road during the draft at spring games. They'll actually be on the road like during a real game now for the SWAC championship. So yeah, who knows? Maybe some scouts will agree with you. We'll be hearing his name called in a year. But you're right about Legion Field though. You can't stop making fun of Legion Field. It's terrible. So
Yeah, like so Skylar Perry too for
Yeah.
Pine Bluff. Not too bad of a year as well, averaging 251 yards a game, 12 touchdowns, 3 picks for the Lions in their first SWAC title game since I think they're at least the early 2010s. So it's their first time in a while going to the title game. Made for TV, Jay Walker on the call. I keep forgetting her name, the play-by-play woman. Give me a second on that. HBCU ESPN
As long as it's not
announcer. Sorry. Tiffany Green, Howard alum, great play-by-play woman. Her and Jay Scott on the call. So what should be a fun time. Cozy up, get a beer on a Saturday afternoon for the only game that day.
Yeah, definitely. I'm excited for that. That'll be something that I'll definitely keep an eye on. Yeah, man, what a great weekend of football. Like we've been talking about. Like this is awesome. I love this. If it weren't for the occasional like the 3 or 4 like FCS draft prospects that we have every year, then I wish we would just keep this in the spring. Like this would be great. I think it would get so much more publicity. It'd be great. Some people just if there's any kind of remote football on, they're not gonna watch basketball or baseball. What's that Bud Light commercial where it's like the guy sits down and asks who's playing, and the other guy drinking Bud Light is like, does it matter? It's like no, like football is football. Like people always watch this, so I wish they would keep this in the spring. But I digress. Moving on to the Walter Payton Award. We have got 3 finalists, and one of them is not named, or all 3 of them are not named Eric Schmid, actually, which is odd to me. What are your thoughts on the Walter Payton Award final coming out and saying who their finalists are?
So I was really surprised by Schmid not making the list because all the things like the stats early on, and I do think there was a decline in his production later on in the season, so that makes sense. Other guys I liked in the rankings, so I like Jacob Harris a lot. Jacob Harris for VMI a lot, and he came in 4th in the voting.
You called it. He was 4th in voting. Yeah,
yeah.
You called it on that one. Props to you.
I think people recognized it. And another guy I liked that I like Aqeel Glass, of course, for sure. All the way at 6, played 3 games, but left such an impression on the voters in his 3 games that he ended up 6th above guys like Pierre Strong for South Dakota State, Liam Welch, who had comparable stats for sure from Stanford, as we both remember. But I mean, I guess it's that national TV. I mean, I want to know your thoughts on that, Jackson. Like Aqeel Glass, do you think him playing on national TV in 2 of his 3 games helped his cause for the Walter Payton?
It certainly doesn't hurt because I was looking at the website where the finalists came out on, and I am struggling to find it, but it was upwards of 120 voters, if I remember right, somewhere around there. And, not all of them are going to do the research they're supposed to do. We have big issues with this in the Heisman and college football awards. They just kind of vote for who they're told to by all the other media. So yeah, a national televised game really helps, especially when you're in the FCS. If you have a voter that they've got other projects, other, whatever reporters do, they've got other stuff going on. You know what? They may not go out of their way to watch ESPN Plus on 2 p.m. on a Saturday when their kid's got a Little League game. Like, they may just watch the national televised ones. And that certainly helps. And I think it shows kind of proof that, hey, if you can get on TV, then, it'll go a long way. The only argument against that, however, is that I did not see any Jackson State players on either one, which hypothetically, by that theory, like 5 of them should be Jackson State. So,
I mean, I say that equal airtime is equal airtime. I mean, like,
yeah.
Aqeel Glass playing Jackson State leaves the opportunity for Aqeel Glass to lay up a 7-touchdown burger. Lay out a 7-touchdown burger on the Jackson State Tigers. So I think that was cool to see Aqeel Glass. And so our top 3, I want to know your thoughts on just the list of 16 candidates and the top 3 they selected. I want to know your thoughts, Jackson.
Yeah, the top 3. I like Chestnut. In the top 3. I kind of maybe would put Harris above Cole Kelly, the VMI receiver above Cole Kelly, but I don't think you can have 2 non-quarterbacks in a final 3. Honestly, I probably prefer Chestnut to Harris. So, I think they got it right. I don't have too many issues with it. Do you see anything that's like glaringly bad in the rankings?
So I am happy for Chestnut playing out of the Northeastern Northeastern Conference, a conference that is not known at all for its athletic pedigree or like basketball or football. So it's a credit that he was able to become a top 3 finalist. Must have left such an impression. Like 179 yards a game, he'd be a 1,000-yard rusher for sure. During that,
I think.
I think so. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say the committee or the not the committee the voters for this have very strong opinions on who the best quarterbacks in the FCS are because it's a Barrier and Kelly, and then you know who the next quarterback is. You have to go all the way down to Liam Welch for Stanford.
Well, it's Glass. Glass is 6.
Yes.
Glass is number 6. They have him listed as a running back in the link I sent you. I don't know why that happened.
You know what? I missed this because I was just scrolling down. But you know what? Yeah, they have Glass missed.
It's strange.
But yeah, I mean, that's still like 4 spots down. Well, potentially 3, but you get what I'm saying. So it's interesting. Something to.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So my top 3, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. I think my top 3. I think Kelly gets it due to that final shootout against SIU, against Southern Illinois, where that game felt like it felt like everything that Coastal Carolina BYU wasn't. High scoring affair, final playoff spot on the line, and it showed what's great about FCS football and what's not so great about FBS football. Where that game, Coastal Carolina BYU, should have been for a New Year's Six spot, even a playoff spot. This game was actually for a playoff spot, and it got Southern Illinois over the hump. And Kelly still balled out. So I think Kelly wins it out of Southeastern Louisiana. Second, I think they put Chestnut number 2 because he's only played 5 games, and the Northeastern Conference, there's that stigma of it as it being kind of a weaker conference. Looking at the schedule they played, he had a win against Duquesne. Like they played Duquesne twice, like the other strong team. But sorry, I tapped in Duquesne instead. But the rest of their schedule, they had the Delaware game, but they had Long Island U, Merrimack, a couple of bad teams as well where Julius Chestnut could stack up his stats. And I think the voters look down upon that. And then third, I have Barrier because I think if it would have been a closer game with North Dakota State, then I think he definitely could have won it. But after blowing the lead and looking dead in the second half, I don't think he wins it or comes close to Kelly, even Chestnut.
Barrier has 1 more touchdown and 3 more interceptions than Cole Kelly, which is not a very good ratio. So yeah, I think we're looking at Cole Kelly as the winner of this, and I think part of the reason being Chestnut, it's just not a running back award, and maybe it should be. It should go to the best offensive player. But yeah, it's a quarterback award for the most part. And I mean, we saw with Devontae Smith, that it goes to a non-quarterback, but I just don't see it happening. I think Cole Kelly, they put 2 quarterbacks in there for a reason. I think Cole Kelly is going to be it.
And I'd like to think, so maybe they look at the pandemic year. Maybe if Chestnut played more than 5 games, I think the award would definitely be his.
If he had like a Jarrett Patterson type season for like all of the spring, then yeah. But no, he didn't. So
yeah, that's the thing. Like it's really hard. So I mean, I wish the best for Julius Chestnut. It's a shame that he gets it. It's a shame that the New York City market being out there in Fairfield didn't really help him. It couldn't really help him as much. But I do think Kelly is. And I think that's a good segue into the Buck Buchanan Award finalists. I want to know your thoughts on some of the guys on here for the Buck Buchanan Final Award.
You know what? Before we get to the Buck Buchanan, I wanted to mention one thing. Pop quiz. What is the main knock against Jarrett Patterson besides not being a pass catcher?
Is it pass pro or size?
Size.
That's ridiculous. That's actually
Name
ridiculous.
a running back that had the size of Jarrett Patterson.
Darren Sproles? I don't really know.
Maurice Jones-Drew.
Oh, really?
And he has been working out in Miami with Maurice Jones-Drew.
That's awesome. No, that's a great sign.
I love that. I hope he slips in that 7th round. He deserves it.
Oh, heck yeah. Oh, I totally agree.
Awesome. I'm buying a Patterson jersey as soon as I can. All right, moving on to the Buck Buchanan. It may not be Miami, but I know he's working out with MJD for sure. But let's see. So the Buck Buchanan Award for number 1, I have Colby Campbell, linebacker and a Presbyterian. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. An insane 96 tackles, 7 of them tackles for loss, forced fumble, quarterback hit, a couple PBUs. But man, Colby Campbell has just had a heck of a year. And at the end of the day, what you're trying to do on defense is tackle. That's typically, you get interceptions and stuff, but your main goal is to tackle. And no matter where you are, and Colby Campbell does that best out of any of these guys.
So I'm gonna be a contrarian a bit to your pick. I'm gonna go Nicario Harper out of Jacksonville State, the safety, because him playing 11 games, 79 tackles, 3 picks, 3 breakups, had a 64-yard fumble return, guy that's all over the place. And I want to say, so either way, I'm a fan of either pick because it'll be cool to have a guy playing for Presbyterian, a team in the Pioneer Football League, non-scholarship league. They're transitioning to non-scholarship play. Presbyterian's only been an FCS school for, I think, less than 15 years. Either way, we have like a groundbreaking winner. But I think looking at this pandemic year and looking at Harper's more consistent body of work over 11 games, even though if he didn't have a 25 tackle game like Colby Campbell, I think that was kind of Campbell's Buck Buchanan moment. 25 tackles against the PFL champs Davidson. That's definitely his Buck Buchanan moment. That's something Harper doesn't have, but I got to think that, all things aside, kind of like the Devontae Smith effect, where it's like, okay, it's a pandemic. Let's make a DB. Let's make a DB the winner of the the Buck Buchanan Award. Excuse me.
Colby Campbell is to Cole Kelly as Nicario Harper is to Julius Chestnut. I think they are deserving and maybe even deserving to win. I don't think they're going to put the DB as a winner, just because it took over a decade-long tenure for an NFL corner to make it as the Buck Buchanan winner. So I don't think that they're going to put him, but I'm saying he was number 3 on like my most likely to win it, Nicario Harper. If we're going just by stats, I think he probably is number 1 because I think that 79 tackles and 3 interceptions is more impressive than 96 tackles and like 1 sack or 7 tackles for loss, whatever it is. So yeah, I've got Colby Campbell as 1. I've got Mike Green as my 2nd. Only 15 tackles, which is not that many, but 8 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks. He also is playing on a playoff team that is still alive, which is important, I think, because he can contribute to that to that number still. So James Madison is who I've got, or Mike Green from James Madison is who I've got 2nd.
I like Green a lot with it being a front 7 award, but I just think his stats are too thin. Like, I mean, he makes big plays, but it kind of seems like he's not. I mean, I'm sure he gets double teamed too, being a D lineman. So maybe that's why his stats aren't as great with only 15 tackles. TFLs are there though for sure. So I like Green with like the precedent of the award. Number 2, I have Campbell. But I'm going to go to number 3. I think I got Stone Snyder out of VMI, and I think just the storyline with that is just so great that the voters have to look at it, especially with the stats too. He's got 76 tackles, 9.5 TFLs, 8 sacks. More TFLs and sacks than Green at the linebacker position, and I think as a middle linebacker too. So I think Snyder with the story, everything implicated in it, and just the production too, puts him at number 3 above Green.
Yeah, definitely. I can see that, and you're right. Green doesn't have the tackles. He does have the tackles for loss, which is the most flashy and most highlight worthy. But yeah, I'm just glad neither of us picked a certain linebacker out of Southern Utah because I don't think either of us know how to say that name. It's like 20 letters. But yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and ask you a question. What are the odds? And I want numbers here. What are the odds you think Robert Rochelle, the Central Arkansas corner wins this?
It's funny you ask. I was about to bring him up.
Yeah.
I know it's your guy with the Senior Bowl. I don't think there's any chance. I'm sorry. Just like 27 tackle, I'm looking at Jordan Lewis.
If he plays in the spring, do you think the projected 3rd round pick is winning it?
No, I don't think his stats is a DB. There's like a bunch of better DBs. There's Harper. There's the safety
but
from
if he
Sanford.
Plays through the spring, I mean, I don't think
plays through. Oh,
yeah. If he plays in the spring,
maybe, but I just don't think there's enough like data to back that. Because like, I mean, it's like saying that's like fair. like what if like he would get his like fair share of work against Southland passing games against Schmid, Cole Kelly, Lindsey Scott, so he would get his fair share of work.
If we're using the Senior Bowl argument, then why is Kate Johnson not on the Walter Payton Award list? Like I just don't think it's gonna happen. Yeah, I would say like 20-1, and I wouldn't put any money on it either. For Robert Rochelle to win it, but yeah, I mean he's a good player. Good luck to him on Friday. Hopefully he gets picked then. But yeah, it's interesting that they put him on the list though, because it's odd. Like there were some voters that. Is it the casual voter that just sees, oh, this is an NFL prospect that plays in the FCS? Oh, he played technically this year. Let's put him on. Like, I'm curious to see like who voted for that and what the thought process was. But I don't think he should win it either. But it's just something interesting to note. But yeah, I'm excited to see how Colby Campbell, Mike Green, Nicario Harper. We did not do a great job picking the finalists for this, so maybe we're probably off. It's probably going to be like, I don't know, like Story Jackson, the linebacker out of Prairie View or something like that.
Might even be so. I think Jordan Lewis actually too. So I'd take Jordan Lewis over Mike Green because he's got 15 TFLs, Jackson, and 10.5 sacks. Like he's what Mike Green, I guess what people want Mike Green to be.
With more stats, or more weeks under his belt. I can see that.
With 2 nationally televised games against Jackson State, and of course, people probably didn't care about the Jackson State game. They probably cared more about the Bayou Classic, given the history of the Bayou Classic, and those 2 nationally televised games, as we talked about with Glass, helped. So I don't know, maybe Jordan Lewis kind of creeps up there as well. I mean, I think it's closely contested between Harper, Campbell, and Lewis, because all 3 of those guys have a really deserving case, whether it's games played, a breakout game, or just overall consistency and monster stats, like 15 TFLs in 5 games. It's always fun to play with on pace for stats. He's on pace for over 30 tackles for loss if he plays a full 11-game season. I mean, and also 21 sacks too, if you double that to a regular season, extrapolate it. So, I mean, I think it's going to be a close race either way.
Yeah, it sure seems like it. It's interesting. I didn't really think about that. We talked about Mike Green all year, but yeah, it sure seems like that Lewis might end up with that if it goes to a defensive end. But yeah, I like that. At least I do. We have a defensive lineman, we have a back, a linebacker, and then we have someone in the backfield. So I like that a lot. Or the secondary. So, yeah, but we already covered our bracketology. We've got the Walter Payton Award. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have someone or a team that you feel pretty confident that might win it all?
I think South Dakota State just riding the hot team. Either South Dakota State.
So it stays within the Dakotas, not the state, but the Dakota.
Or James Madison, too. Maybe James Madison. Yeah. Those are the 2 for me. Actually, James Madison or Delaware. Actually, not James Madison. I'll flip that. Delaware. Because Delaware's got Jacksonville State. And then I think after that, the way the bracket works out, they'll face, South Dakota State in the semifinal. So, I mean, that'll be a test for sure. But, I mean, Delaware seems like a well-rounded team. Like, they got the defense. They got the running game to play. Like, they play like those MVFC squads.
Jacksonville State had that huge upset almost a decade ago against Ole Miss. Do you think if they make it to the championship, maybe not necessarily win, that would be their biggest moment since then?
I think so. I want to say that they've also won like a D2 title along the way, like early on. Early on. But I think definitely, that's just like a moment in time. Like a championship. Championships last forever, definitely. Really. And yeah, they did win the 1992 Division II championship.
I knew that.
So. just a little Wikipedia search.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask. So I did want to ask.
State. My heart is there with you with South Dakota State. We'll see. I would love to see the Jackrabbits win one.
Yeah, for sure. Just a hot team, in my opinion. We'll see. I wanted to ask you about we talked a little bit about the HBCU coaching carousel with Dawson Odoms going to Norfolk State and talking about guys doing it the right way. I think that was a shot, a kind of sneak diss towards Eddie George and Deion Sanders and guys like that. I just want to know what your thoughts on the current trend towards legends is in HBCUs.
It's not fair, but it's good. I don't know if that makes sense. I don't think it's fair to the guys that are within it, and that have worked their way up within HBCUs and the coaching ranks and all that. I think overall for the sport and for the SWAC and the MEAC, I think overall it's a good thing, because it brings more attention. We're seeing all the success with Jackson State being on ESPN every week. We're seeing, more attention go to these guys like Aqeel Glass, guys that deserve it. But you're right. It is not fair. And it was a deserved shot because these guys they've never coached, a team, they've coached, younger guys on their NFL squads, but they haven't coached any teams outside of high school. And so, it's not fair, but it is interesting to see. And yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say because it's like, I think it does bring a lot of publicity to the sport, and people are paying more attention to HBCUs than they have in a long time. Part of that maybe because it's in the spring, but it's interesting to see. Do you want to see the trend keep going, or do you want to see more guys hired internally?
Again, like you said, it's not fair. And my standpoint is I don't think the HBCUs ever needed saving in terms of exposure because they lead FCS in attendance. They have the national TV spot with the Celebration Bowl and the SWAC championship. I don't think they ever needed saving really, or that exposure.
Well, I don't think they need saving. I think it's just like icing on the cake.
Okay.
I wasn't saying that they needed
saving. Yeah.
I was just saying that, like, when was the last time that, like, ESPN's Instagram page posted about an FCS score at HBCU? Like, it's been a while since, like, we've seen this much attention go to them. Yeah, they don't need saving.
My bad. Sorry for misattributing that.
Oh, no, you're good. Yeah. They'll be fine for as long as they're around. I'm just saying it brings, like, more attention. So
yeah, and something that's happened recently too, just talking to some people, is some donors have given a lot of money, like namely Jeff Bezos gave a bunch of donor money to a bunch of HBCUs. And I do think this could fire up donors, like old graduates from these schools, to get excited about these programs. Definitely. And like that should help a lot in terms of facilities that, are lagging behind other schools, other comparative schools. But I mean, it helps for sure. But again, I can't help but feel for guys like Dawson Odom's, other homegrown HBCU coaching talents that are being passed up for these guys just because, they had a Hall of Fame career. But we'll see where it ends up. We'll see if, this is just a fad or if it lasts for a while, because this has been happening for a while. Doug Williams coached Grambling, early 2000s. I want to say Ken Riley, who should be in the Hall of Fame. Ken Riley, the Bengals great, who should be in the Hall of Fame, coached Florida A&M, I believe, for a period of time too. So it's like the more things change, the more things stay the same. He did coach Florida A&M, led him to a Heritage Bowl. But the more things change, the more they stay the same. And maybe, again, it's just like history repeating itself.
Don't be surprised in 3 or 4 years that we start seeing an HBCU to NFL pipeline, because we're seeing these NFL coaches, our former NFL stars, go into coaching, and then we're also something that got canceled due to COVID twice. The HBCU Combine was supposed to be in Fort Lauderdale in 2019, and then or in 2020, and then obviously didn't happen this year. So I'm looking forward to that next year too. A lot more publicity, a good follow if you're interested in HBCUs and everything and their possible relation with the NFL. Steve Weich and his podcast. Steve is an awesome guy, works for both the Falcons and for NFL Network. He has a podcast on HBCUs as well, which is awesome. It has a lot of NFL guests on there. I know he's had Ray Lewis, all that. So yeah, that's another good one to follow. But I'm interested to see where that pans out in 3 or 4 years. And yeah, they'll be just fine either way, but it does bring some more publicity, which I think is good. I don't want it to be at the cost of, can we just have like more publicity and have these guys like hired internally? That would be ideal. So that's kind of up to the networks.
Yeah, so I think so. One final point you mentioned I guess this would be our final topic before we go. You mentioned the HBCU to NFL pipeline, and
Yeah.
something that you don't really see there is a quarterback pipeline. I'm not sure if you've ever heard the name Amir Hall from Bowie State in Maryland. He was a quarterback prospect, and he actually got invited to the NFLPA Bowl out in Los Angeles, the NFLPA All-Star Game. But there was a controversy, and I am totally on the Team Hall side, where he wasn't featured as prominently as the other quarterbacks on the team, where he threw only one pass, was featured on like one drive, and they ran the ball on most of that drive, while the other quarterbacks had like a lot more passing attempts. I'm trying to pull up the article. Yeah, there you go. There's an article that I'll link in the bio titled by HBCU Game Day, another good follow for HBCU Sports, probably the follow. Amir Hall faintly featured in NFLPA Collegiate Bowl. And so right here, with 7:35 left in the third quarter, he made his debut in the game, and they had a 10-play drive, and they ran 9 of the 10 plays, and Hall's one pass was deflected at the line. Division II HBCU quarterback at Bowie State. And on his teammates, Jake Browning, Washington Great, had 17 passes. Brent Stockstill had 13 passes, and Hall had 1 pass. So do you see like a similar fate happening? I guess if Aqeel Glass stays into the fall, gets invited to like say the East-West Shrine Game or the NFLPA Bowl, do you see a similar fate happening, or do you think the national TV appearances helps him out? Do you think this is a problem we should, be looking at? Because I think it's kind of wrong what happened to Amir Hall in 2019.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the NFLPA Bowl and how it works. If it's anything like the Senior Bowl, and the East-West Shrine Game, then the practices are what's much more important. Some scouts and GMs are even gone by Saturday when the game is played. It's mostly the practices. We get a lot of hands-on time. I'd be interested to know what those practices look like, how we looked in practice, how many reps he got, how early on, how he compared to the other quarterbacks on that roster. So yeah, I'd be interested to know that. Certainly an HBCU combine would help if we didn't get in. I'm assuming he didn't get invited to the scouting combine in Indy.
I don't think so.
Yeah, that's what I would
and keep in
assume.
mind too,
If he's playing in an NFLPA Bowl, that's like usually we're like talking into like UDFA range. Yeah, I would have liked to know what the practices look like more than anything. It also hurts that like teams are only allowed like 5 tryouts, like a ridiculously low number because of COVID, which that's for this year. But I'd be interested to know if COVID, because even if you said he was in 2019, right?
2018 season, January 2019 was All-Star game.
Okay, yeah, so 2018, like I know that was pre-COVID, but like you still see guys get tryouts like 2-3 years after they were out of college. All the time, don't be surprised if you see some FCF players get some invites in the next couple of years too. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I'd like to keep up with the story. Is he playing anywhere right now? Is he in like
no? He had an XFL tryout, but I will say the next best. I think so. I remember watching the Magic City Classic a couple weeks ago, and they had a stat on the broadcast. There's only been 5 HBCU quarterbacks drafted since 1981. Really low number. And the last quarterback to be drafted, the late great Tavares Jackson, rest in peace. So there's a problem there in terms of quarterback production. Those guys aren't really getting attention. There's guys that put up numbers each year. I think Glass is the real deal, pro ready, and I hope he doesn't get the same fate as Hall. But I think maybe the national TV appearances will help him get some drives if he does get invited to an All-Star game. Keep in mind there is also going to be an HBCU All-Star game in New Orleans in January of 2022 at Tulane's Yeoman Stadium. So maybe he makes the rounds and plays in both. Maybe he makes it. Here's what I see happening. Maybe he gets into the Hula Bowl, one of the lesser All-Star games, but still making his way up the Hula Bowl, and then goes from there to the HBCU All-Star game. But either way, I hope he gets his snaps too, because Aqeel Glass, they got to call him Showtime, because that is must see TV anytime that man goes under center.
Yeah, definitely. Something to keep an eye on, and I'm excited. I did not know that about that being in New Orleans. I'm excited to see that and where that is in the next couple of years. But I mean, what like we said this whole podcast, what a great weekend. I'm excited for it, and the future is bright for HBCUs. There's not really any wrong way. Future is bright. And that is only in part thanks to Dion. The future's been bright, but the publicity helps, but it's not everything. So, yeah, man, I'm good if you are. Do you have anything else?
No, let's just enjoy this weekend.
Yeah.
One game on Saturday, 4 on Sunday. Let's enjoy it.
One final question: Mac Jones or Trey Lance?
Trey Lance got the Trey Lance Bowl.
Completely agreed. Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's funny because I saw Trey Lance's first game in person, and I saw Zach Wilson during his freshman year. It's like, and then the year before that, Daniel Jones came to West Point. So it's like I had a 3-year streak seeing top 10 quarterback prospects. I didn't even realize it. It's crazy.
That's funny. Did you go to the Oklahoma game with Kyler Murray?
No, unfortunately, I didn't.
Oh,
I didn't pay the plane ticket for that.
Oh, wait, was that?
It was Sammy.
No,
that was Sammy.
That's
the same
why. Yeah, you're right.
That was a Sammy. Yeah. But I did not, unfortunately. I don't really regret it. Would have been heartbroken, but yeah. So it's interesting. But I got to go Trey Lance right there, especially seeing his first game. I can tell kids if he's a Hall of Famer. I saw that man before he's famous.
Yeah, you did, and you did not. Fortunately, you did not get to see the 1-game season that NDSU.
No, yeah. 1-game fall season.
yeah, that's not a season. That's a scrimmage. I'm excited to see, and this will be fun, a fun weekend for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And if you don't have anything else, Jackson, guess we're good to sign off. Enjoy this weekend, and peace, love, and soul, everyone.